I'm Jeremy Wade. For 30 years, I've been fishing for evidence to piece together the stories behind mysterious freshwater deaths, tracking down the perpetrators wherever they're hiding. And there's one place that keeps calling me back. A place with more than its fair share of lethal beasts. The Amazon. Now, over the course of an entire year, I'm delving deeper into this wilderness than ever before. As always, I'm looking out for an unusual tale, an unexplained attack that could lead me to a new monster. So when a corpse washes up, covered in extraordinary bruises, I start my search for an underwater killer.
This could be the scariest river monster I've ever come up against.
But the only way to confront this beast is in its own element.
Look at the size of it!
I've been exploring the Amazon for 20 years. It's a river that has mesmerized me with its split personality. One moment it can sustain you, then, in the blink of an eye, it can transform into something deadly. I've seen injuries inflicted by many underwater assailants. And the bites or stab wounds left on victims can be like a grisly calling card, giving me a definite ID. But I've just heard about a body that was found in the northeastern part of the Amazon that had very different injuries. Reports said the man's torso was covered with bruises, like nothing anybody had seen before. No one knows how he died, but they're blaming it on something in the river. These mysterious injuries could be the signature of a new freshwater killer, something I've not yet encountered. I have to find out what's going on. The epicenter of this mystery is a place I've never been before. The town of Porto de Mores in Brazil. This isolated town was first established in the late 1800s during the Amazon's rubber boom. When this industry collapsed in the early 20th century, the place became a lawless outpost. It's now a hub for illegal loggers. I speak the local language, Brazilian Portuguese, which I hope will get me beneath the surface of this community. My first port of call is the fish market.
Senhor, como se chama essas aqui?
Here I can start getting an idea of what's under the water and what I might be up against.
These are Piraíba. Normally you'll just see maybe one large one if you're lucky. I've never seen this number of small ones.
They say a large Piraíba can swallow a man.
Big old mouth on there.
But they're not on my suspect list. Their bite isn't strong enough to inflict the massive bruising that was reported on the corpse in question.
Como se chama esse peixe aqui? Acari.
This catfish demonstrates how vicious life is under the water here. It's become such an arms race down there that some fish have evolved armor plating.
If you're a large creature under the water, the only way you're going to get through that is with big teeth and with a very serious bite force.
It's clear the water here is a place where killer beasts thrive. Then I see the remains of one of the most dangerous fish I've ever encountered. An arapaima.
The gills would have been here, the head out here somewhere. I put at least 200 pounds on the weight of that entire live animal. Big fish.
Arapaima this large have the potential to kill humans. I myself had a very close call when one of these living torpedoes launched itself at my chest. But the injury it inflicts is very localized, not the extensive bruising reportedly on the corpse I'm investigating. The fish market hasn't offered up any potential suspects. I need to find someone who actually saw the body, who can describe the injuries in more detail. A first-hand account could give me the lead I'm looking for. It seems no authorities were called in to examine the corpse, so I hit the streets to find a witness.
Mon Dieu.
And very quickly, the mystery deepens. I start to hear about other people who have vanished. A shop owner tells me about a boat that was coming back to town after a logging trip. All seemed fine until it got into port, where they made an alarming discovery. One of the crew who'd been at the back of the boat had disappeared.
The thing about this particular case is that his body to this day hasn't been found.
The Amazon is well known to be a dangerous region, where people do sometimes go missing. But this wasn't an isolated case. A man named Enivaldo tells me about a father and son who went out in a canoe one day.
After a couple of days, they hadn't come back, so they got people together, had a look.
It turned out that they too had vanished. Everyone here is convinced that something in the water took these people. And the next story I hear makes me think they could indeed be right. This time, the victim was a swimmer who disappeared in front of dozens of witnesses.
Somebody on the beach near here dived in the water and then didn't resurface. People didn't see anything other than the fact that he never appeared, and to this day his body hasn't been found.
I'm always on the lookout for anomalies, for anything unusual that stands out from the background noise of everyday life. And on the face of it, there appears to be an unusual concentration of disappearances around Porto de Moj. And when I hear of a huge unidentified creature in the water,
something about 50 yards out in the river surfaced.
It's all stacking up. I'm on the trail of a monster.
Eu vi, era uma cabeça, e não era pequena não, assim.
You didn't get a good clear look at it, but it was a head, and it was 3 or 4 foot long, and then it went down under the surface. He has no idea what it was, but says that other people have seen something similar.
Tem alguns.
Washington goes on to tell me he's not the only person to witness this unknown giant. Many people have become too scared to go out on the water alone at night.
And this is because they feel that there's something large in the water that's followed them, normally at night, normally just as it's getting dark. They don't know what it is, but there's something they feel that's coming after them.
It's turning out to be a much bigger mystery than the one I set out to solve. I have to find out if the bruised corpse, the strange disappearances, and the mystery beast are all connected. At dusk, I head out of town, to the location of the most recent incident. I need to get my line in the water and see what's down there. Locals avoid going on the river at night, fearing that something may attack them. This is when the big hunters come out. I find a good spot to tackle up. Small fish will be darting into the open water from the safety of the reeds. A tempting meal for a hungry predator.
Judging by the amount of time it took for the lead to hit the bottom, I'm guessing I've got about 15 foot, something like that. Not very far off the weeds here, so quite a respectable depth. With the clicker on, I'll just get my finger on the line as well, so if anything does pluck, I'll feel it.
Then, in the very place where somebody went missing, something strikes my bait.
No, don't push, don't push. There's something here. Fish. I'll get it in the boat. See if I can just pull it in. Well, this is a stingray.
This is a species of stingray I've never seen before. It's a good 2 foot across and weighs around 20 pounds. Freshwater rays are dangerous thanks to the weaponry they pack. The venomous spike on the tail.
Normally, they will stab your foot if you tread on them. That in itself isn't potentially fatal, but worst case scenario is that gets infected, it gets gangrene, and you can die a very slow, painful, lingering death.
Alternatively, if an artery is punctured, the unlucky victim could bleed to death. Though potentially lethal, stingrays are off my suspect list. They're simply not capable of producing extensive bruising. And stingrays don't cause people to disappear. It's true that in one case I investigated, a young bride was harpooned in her ankle by a stingray, which then dragged her to her death. But her body was eventually found. I want to release it, but these things have to be handled with care.
Right, it's going over the side. Tail first. Got it.
Back in Porto de Moj the next morning, I continue my search for clues. And I uncover a story about a boy who fell foul of an unknown assailant off a beach just outside town. The boy was playing football with his cousin when the ball was kicked into the water. He went in to collect it. And on his way back to shore, something grabbed his foot. He was only just able to kick himself free.
He said that whatever it was big. He said at least the size of him. He said when it grabbed hold of his foot, if he hadn't managed to somehow shake it off and kick it, he reckons, you know, it could have pulled him under and he wouldn't have made it to the side.
Since the attack, he hasn't dared to go back in the water. But he was lucky, the one that got away. From what he's told me, I now know there's something big and aggressive in the water here. It could be the animal I'm looking for. Word of my investigation has reached a port worker, Mr. Santos. He says he saw the body with the mysterious injuries. Could he perhaps have the vital information I need to solve this case?
Como foi a história?
Ele saiu com um companheiro para pescar, né? Todos amigos.
He tells me the victim's name was Laercio, and that he'd gone out hunting with a friend.
Se chamou pântano lá. É cheio de árvore.
They went off in separate directions. Then, Laercio's friend heard screams, as though somebody was being attacked. He went in the direction of the shouts to investigate. But Laercio and his boat had vanished. Search parties were sent out, and the corpse was eventually found. Mr. Santos confirms that the body was covered in bruises.
Não viram sinal nenhum.
And that there weren't any distinctive bite marks from Cayman or the Amazon's most feared killer, piranha. Both of these would have left distinctive and recognizable marks behind. Whatever attacked and killed Laercio must have been something else.
Tinha sinal de aperto. Aperto, assim.
The body had this look as if part of it had been crushed, particularly the upper body.
Era aqui nessa...
Along with the bruising on his neck and torso, bones were also broken.
There was this look of some pretty severe physical damage.
These broken bones are unlike any injuries I've heard of before. But what in these waters could have crushed a man to death? I'm guessing that whatever did it must be large and extremely powerful. I want to get my line in the water at the place where the corpse was found.
Isca de farinha ou pão?
But finding someone willing to take me there is proving difficult.
Puxando. Nada disso, não? No. Okay.
My perseverance eventually pays off. I find a man who agrees to take me into the kill zone. I'm going to fish in the margins, where big predators often hunt for their prey.
Bit of tactics. We're moored at the stern of the boat. The idea being that if anything takes that tries to get into these sunken trees here, look, it's very snaggy here on the margin, we can quickly get the boat out and pull anything away from the snags.
I still don't know what I'm hunting, but I found that fresh bait is always a good bet for tempting killers onto my line. Could whatever this is be capable of breaking bones and killing a man?
For.
It's a red-tailed catfish.
That noise is just air being pumped over the gills instead of water. Right.
This one is around 20 pounds, but they can grow much larger. 4 feet long and 5 times as heavy.
And there are stories of these grabbing people, normally children, and pulling them under.
This could explain what happened to the boy on the beach, a large one grabbing his foot. but they don't have a strong enough bite to cause the injuries I've heard about.
There's no way this is actually going to break somebody's bones. It's not going to crush to that extent. Although it's an impressive animal, we can rule it off the suspects list.
People here live in isolated riverside dwellings, right above whatever beast is down there. It's now the wet season, and water levels are at their highest. Livestock have little or no escape from whatever is lurking beneath the surface.
He's saying that there's lots of dangerous creatures in the water here, and he says there's something that will take a full-grown pig. That's a big animal. It's bigger than I am. I wouldn't fancy my chances in a fight with it. I don't think I'd be able to take it down, but there's something in the water here that can, and that's actually quite a terrifying thought.
The farmer believes that whatever's been picking off his livestock is also responsible for yet another human corpse that was recovered near here last year. And it sounds like the body had similar crushing injuries to those sustained by Lesio. I'm told that a man named Zakel saw the body and that he can be found in a nearby village. I set out to track him down. Zakel tells me the victim was his cousin, Nilton. On the day he died, Nilton had gone out to fish.
Só ficou canoa, remo e zagaia, nada, nem o sinal dele.
He'd only been gone 15 minutes when someone discovered his empty canoe. There was no sign of any disturbance. Nilton had vanished. Search parties went out looking for him.
And it wasn't until the next day, the next evening, nearly 36 hours later, that they found him. It was actually Zakel who found the body.
The corpse had extensive bruising, just like Lercio. But this account has some crucial extra details.
Apareceu que ele estava com... E também ele foi deslocado o pescoço dele.
The neck was dislocated.
Que ele tinha as marcas do dente dela assim e assim.
And also had visible bite marks. This could be the crucial clue I've been searching for. I've already eliminated everything I can think of, including stingrays, arapaima, and catfish. Nothing I've dealt with before could have done this. I want to know if Zakel recognized the bite marks on Nilton and can give me an ID on the culprit.
Do you know what animal may have done this?
Sim. Sucuri. Anaconda.
Anacondas killing humans is unprecedented. There have never been any confirmed cases.
Deslocado o pescoço dele.
If these human deaths really are the work of anacondas, that's a huge revelation. But the extensive bruising and broken bones that I've heard about are entirely consistent with the anaconda's MO for killing prey, squeezing the life out of it.
E também ele...
The anaconda is a water-dwelling monster with which I've had little experience. But is this animal also the cause of the disappearances around here? I need to have a close look at this highly secretive predator. Zakel then tells me his theory about how Nilton was ambushed.
Na cabeça.
Na cabeça mesmo?
Foi. Ela pegou assim.
He thinks that it probably grabbed him straight away in the head. And literally, one moment he's there in the boat, the next minute something grabs him and he's in the water. So he was literally plucked out.
The position of the bite marks reveals something else truly terrifying.
E também assim tava todo arralado de.
From the puncture wounds on Milton's neck, the anaconda appears to have worked its mouth around his entire head. What Zakel says rings true. Snakes are well known for consuming their prey head first. They're easier to swallow that way. This new evidence opens up the very real possibility that big anacondas can crush people to death and then swallow them whole. And I'm beginning to think that this might explain why people have vanished from around Porto de Moj. Because when an anaconda feeds, it leaves virtually no trace of its victim. Its stomach acid is so strong that it dissolves even bone. After leaving Zakel, I get my first look at an anaconda here.
Well, it's not even half a snake, it's probably a quarter, if that. And the actual skin's been cut through quite cleanly. It could be a boat propeller that's done it, or maybe just, you know, the locals, you know, they probably, if they find them, they probably kill them. So it could just be a machete that's done that. But I mean, the one thing it is, it's definite evidence that these things are here.
That night, back on my boat, I take stock of the situation. I'm used to tracking down large killer fish, but a reptilian river monster is completely outside my comfort zone. In all my time here, I've only ever seen a big anaconda once, in Guyana on the northern fringe of South America. That one was about 17 feet long, and I was terrified to get too close. But if I'm to solve this mystery, I'll have to face my fear head on. Anacondas spend most of their life in water. They are the heaviest snake in the world. A big one weighs in at more than 300 pounds. They're also said to reach lengths in excess of 25 feet and have a bigger girth than any other snake. Ambush predators, they launch lightning-fast strikes from the water at prey standing on the shore. Favorite victims are animals like capybaras and sometimes even caiman. Now I'm putting myself in the coils of danger to see if they really are big enough to put humans on the menu. To prove anacondas are capable of swallowing somebody whole, I have to confront one face to face to see with my own eyes if they really reach man-eating proportions. Unlike my normal quarry, it won't be caught by rod and line. It's forcing me into new territory. Anacondas are rarely seen and normally live deep in the jungle. But with urban sprawl encroaching on their habitat, they've started to appear in towns. I've just been contacted by the regional fire department, who are regularly brought in to remove anacondas from people's backyards. And they're allowing me to ride shotgun on an emergency call-out. An anaconda was found during a soccer match.
Somebody kicked the ball out of play. They went after it into the long grass. And there was this snake just sitting there.
This 12-foot anaconda is capable of squeezing a child to death and could swallow prey the size of a dog. Although the head looks small, an anaconda can separate the two sides of its lower jaw, enabling it to engulf animals with a much greater girth than itself. A 20-foot anaconda could swallow a man. But confronting one at any size is something I'd normally avoid.
Acho que nessa posição mesmo tá bom para pegar, né?
The snake has to be caught and relocated, and I've talked the fire department and myself into an impromptu training exercise.
Tente não deixar ele se enrolar no seu braço, ok?
I'm hoping that by getting hands-on, I can ease myself into the challenge of facing something that could be nearly twice as long as this one.
Just looking at it up close now, it's in the process of molting its skin. The scales are falling off.
Even the layer over its eyes is peeling off, rendering it temporarily blind. It makes up for this vulnerability with added aggression.
Yep, that's a little bit of a strike.
To catch this anaconda, I have to grab it behind the head. A moment's hesitation, and it could turn and nail me.
Right, I've got it. I possibly need to grab it a little bit closer to the head. And what I want to avoid it doing is getting its body around my arm, because if that happens, what can happen, it can actually restrict the blood flow, and my hand will eventually go numb and then let go. I can see the teeth on the mouth. They're like the barbs on a fish hook. They're pointing backwards. Basically, if that bites you, it's going to be very hard to get that off.
It keeps trying to throw a coil around my body. Its instinctive follow-up to this is squeezing the victim to death. It's a struggle to stop it from wrapping around me. I can feel my arms start to weaken, so before the anaconda gets the better of me, I drop it in a transport container. It'll now be taken deep into the jungle and far away from any people to be released. For the fire department, it's a regular occurrence, with anacondas like this turning up around twice a month.
And it shows that they really are coming from the river, probably looking for food, but if they're not dealt with, they could well end up grabbing somebody.
The next morning, I meet up with snake expert Hippocrates Chalkidis. I'm going to help him release the anaconda back into the jungle.
He's just said we've got to watch out. This is good habitat for anaconda, but there's also likelihood of vipers, venomous snakes down here as well.
Overnight, it's shed most of its skin. It now looks very different. It's much hotter than yesterday, so this anaconda will be much more active. I have to be on my guard.
Oh, it's coming. Já tá chegando.
Before it escapes, I want to feel how strong it is today.
I'm gonna try and grab. Fica fora.
It quickly has me in a vice-like grip.
What I need to do somehow is actually transfer hands, pull this one out, and then I can let her go safely. Oh, there we go. Right, this hand out. Look at that. I'm trying to release my hand. She's absolutely got that, She's totally wrapped around it. Okay. There. Right, head is extended. I'm just going to put her head down there. There.
Once released, it makes a dash for the water, where anacondas feel most at home.
Fear of snakes is hardwired into all of us, so allowing one to wrap around me went against my deepest instincts. But as anacondas go, that was just a small one. And this investigation won't be complete until I encounter an anaconda big enough not just to kill me, but also to swallow me whole.
And I'm soon in little doubt about the kind of sizes they can reach.
Monsieur Luis?
I'm told about a man who encountered a large anaconda a couple of years ago.
A gente contou para mim que o senhor encontrou sucuri bastante grande por aqui, é verdade?
O irmão meu estava pescando.
This was a very large anaconda that his brother saw coming back from fishing.
Como todo enroscada, com a cabeça em cima.
It was rolled up in the root mass of a tree with just its head coming up.
Para dar o bote numa alguma coisa que ela fosse comer.
It looked like it was lying in ambush. Its body was concealed, but its head was there, ready to grab anything that came by.
E aí foi a hora que nós pegamos pedaço de pau, cacetei ela.
And they decided that because it was so big and so close to people, that they would kill it.
I can get a sense of how big this snake really was, because Luis still has the skin.
This just keeps going and going. He's unrolling that end. This is the tail, and he's got the head end there. This is a good 15 foot long, and this is minus a bit of the tail and also the head, so the living animal, even allowing for stretch, would have been 16, 17 foot.
I ask Luis what they found inside this anaconda's stomach.
E duas sandálias dentro do bucho dela.
Sandalias.
Sandálias.
When they opened it up, it had the bones of a dog inside, and more ominously, a pair of sandals.
This is the largest snake Luis has ever come across, and he's spent his whole life in the jungle. My only chance of finding a larger one is by actively hunting one down. Over decades of monster hunting, I've investigated many myths and legends that turn out to have an element of reality behind them. All over the Amazon, there are stories of giant anacondas, but the one in the place where I'm going is said to be in a whole different league. It's so large that the only place to keep it safely contained is under a mountain. This story was first told in the 1940s by a prophet called Senhorzinho. Devotees like Fernanda still revere him today.
Acompanhando ele por toda essa região chamada de Serra Limpa e Vale do Mimoso.
She tells me that Senhorzinho was persecuted by the authorities.
E aonde ele estava, os carneirinhos seguiam.
So as a curse against them, he put a huge anaconda in a cave.
Ou mesmo para pedir para ele.
And he said that at a certain point in the future, this giant creature will emerge and devour half the population.
He erected 3 crosses on a nearby hill to signal the time when the snake would be released.
He said that when the last of these crosses falls, that will be the time when the serpent emerges. Now, there used to be 3 here. One has gone completely, disappeared. Just 2 left, and they're both leaning at slightly precarious angles.
The cavern where the snake is said to be trapped is not far from the shrine. Devotees fear going to the cave, so I'm on my own.
No signs of any anacondas, and it's not the kind of place you'd expect to find them. It's too high here, it's too far from the water. But this is a legend, a myth, call it what you will, that has firmly taken hold in the minds of a lot of people, so it has to have some basis. And I'm thinking there's actually a river the base of this mountain, and maybe that's the place where I really need to look.
The Formoso River is where I'm looking for an anaconda, big enough to swallow a man. Most rivers here are murky, but this one has a degree of visibility. My plan is to go beneath the surface. I'll be out of my element and more likely to stumble into something at very close range, so I'm carrying a knife.
Important thing about this is the point. If you actually get that into the inside of a coil, that will stop it exerting that lethal pressure.
My boat driver is Juka. He knows the river well. We arrive at a good spot for me to get in the water. I'm now in the anaconda's domain, and immediately I feel vulnerable. All I have to do now is find a monster. If I run into trouble down here, my only connection to the surface is the radio link in my mask. Recent rains have stirred up the water. Visibility is down to just a couple of yards, and the current has become dangerously fast.
Well, the only way I'm managing to hold position at the moment is actually hanging onto this rock here. And if I wanted to go upstream, there's just no way I'd make any headway without pulling myself along. If I come across an anaconda in these conditions, as things are, I'm probably going to blunder into it.
In this murk, my heart is racing. Down here, there's nowhere for me to hide. I could be grabbed from any direction at any moment.
I can't see it. It's possible it might see me though.
Suddenly, I see something appear out of the gloom.
Here! It's coming down! It's coming down! It's coming out!
With just a few feet of visibility, the only camera that picks it up is the one fixed to my tank.
I'm right next to it. I'm right next to it. I'm with it. I'm with the snake.
Fighting against the current, I'm only able to stay with it for a few seconds. Then, it simply vanishes.
Oh, I might have lost it. I think we've lost it. It can just vanish in a matter of seconds. So it was just a very short, intense experience. I've seen an anaconda now in its own environment. Very, very creepy feeling encountering a snake underwater.
That anaconda was about the same length as the one I caught on the soccer field. A 12-footer is a good start, but I know there are giants here. I've got to head even deeper into the anaconda's territory. This river is my one chance for seeing with my own eyes an anaconda of man-eating proportions, and establishing whether anacondas could have been responsible for the bruised corpses and mysterious disappearances around Porto de Mores. I get back in the water, in a place where Juka recently spotted something huge. I scan both banks for anything that resembles an anaconda. The last thing I want to do is startle one and provoke an attack. Rounding a bend, there's a cloud of silt. And everything I'd hoped for and feared is suddenly there, right in front of me.
Look at the size of this!
I've stumbled into a potential man-eater.
It's got to be a good 20 foot long, 3 times the length of me.
And weighing at least 200 pounds.
It's a monstrous beast.
With a frightening girth.
It is huge. It is absolutely huge.
A bruiser like this can go without eating for 6 months, by which time it's worked up a man-sized appetite.
And what they do is they lurk underwater in ambush.
It's terrifying being this close to an anaconda that could seize me in a flash and then crush me to death. But only by getting up close can I grasp the true scale of this beast. And I can all too easily imagine those jaws working their way around my head, while those massive coils dislocate my shoulders, so the rest of me will slip down.
I'm looking it in the eye. Actually, one this size could swallow an adult human.
After seeing this giant, I'm in no doubt that people are potentially on the menu, and that as well as causing the 2 grisly deaths, anacondas could also have been responsible for the mysterious disappearances around Porto de Moj.
This has to be one of the most incredible encounters of my life.
Anacondas are lurking beneath the surface all over the Amazon, waiting to strike. And I believe they could be responsible for other unsolved disappearances right across this region. But by destroying the evidence, this river monster is covering its tracks.